Yeah, they're not. Yep. Yep.
We began breeding our own pigs so that we could control what they were getting as young piglets. When we were buying feeder pigs in, we didn't know necessarily, what their mother's been fed or what they'd been fed when they were little, and so we really wanted to start the process on the farm. The Tamworth hog was the most sort of commonly available heritage breed, where you could get your hands on breeding stock, and there were enough breeders in the area that you could probably get enough genetic diversity. We wanted them because they forage really well. They're very active grazers. They're very alert. They're super hardy. They seem to be really tough in the cold and really tough in the heat. And they are a bit rowdy. I mean, over the years, I have definitely been selecting my sows to be a little more laid back. We usually have between 5 and 7 sows and 1 boar. That seems to be a good number so that it's worthwhile keeping a boar. I mean, you have to have a certain number of sows for feeding and managing a boar to be worthwhile. One of the most important things about breeding in my small sow herd is making sure that everybody gets bred. It's super important for financial reasons to make sure that they all have a litter twice a year. And very commonly, my sows are in the back 40, and I'm not seeing them every minute of every day. I'm not necessarily the one doing chores. So I need some tools to figure out when they've been bred and who's been bred. I do have a small ultrasound device, which can determine whether they're bred or not. But I haven't found it nearly as useful as boar blight, which is the giant rub mark on their back from the boar. There's usually a physical sign that the sow has been mounted and that she's probably been bred. Now, it doesn't mean she's necessarily pregnant, but it means that she came into heat and she's been mounted, and she's, in my situation, most likely pregnant. When the sows are out on pasture and they're gestating, when they're pregnant, they get a very controlled ration, probably 4 to 5 pounds a day, because they'll get fat and they won't farrow as well. And I want to keep them active and light on their feet while they're pregnant. So the ration is much more controlled during the pregnancy. It's primarily corn, soybeans, oats, a NutriBalancer. I think there's kelp in there as well. It's always adjusted a little bit according to what's available at the feed mill, but we do have a fairly standard ration for sows. Once they farrow, we try to put actually as much feed in front of them as possible. We want them to eat a lot so that they produce a lot of milk for their piglets and do really well that way. The reproductive life of our sows has really varied. Some sows, after the first couple litters, are clearly not working out for us. They're either too aggressive to work with pleasantly, or they're not having good litters, they're not good mothers. And then sometimes go on for years. So it's really varied pig to pig. Retired sows are actually quite valuable to us. They're not a waste. We turn them into hot dogs and sausages and bacon, and that's been an important part of our process of getting the herd going and making it more profitable. Also, is to know when a sow needs to leave the herd and when she becomes more valuable as sausage than she is as a mother. And that's a difficult decision to make, but it's really important for keeping the herd vital and productive and not sinking a lot of money into animals that aren't being productive for us anymore. We also, since we have such a small herd, we have to rotate in a new boar every 2 or 3 years. And that's an important thing to consider when you're having a small herd. If you're going to then keep your own gilts for new sows, then you're going to have to rotate in a new boar occasionally because he can't breed back to his own daughters. And so that's been one of our challenges as a really small herd is bringing in new genetics every few years. Our sows, we try not to push too hard. We typically have 2 litters a year. We wean at 8 weeks. And so we tend to have early spring litters and early fall litters. And we like to see the sows having an average of 8 piglets per litter. If sows start falling much below that, it becomes more difficult to be profitable, and we may consider calling them or changing our management or something. But that's what we're shooting for. Most of my sows Farrow a piglet every 15 minutes to a half an hour or so. Anywhere from 6 to 14 piglets. It depends on the sow. I like a smaller litter. I'd always prefer a litter of 8 piglets to all survive than a litter of 14 piglets where 8 survive. So I find that a moderate sized litter, all of them are more likely to make it. And a great big litter, I'm more likely to lose the smaller or later born pigs to crushing or just, failure to thrive. So I'm always shooting for choosing sows that make just a moderate size, good, healthy litter. Right now, all the sows are out on pasture with the boar. They've all been bred. Presumably, they're all pregnant. I'm watching through one more cycle to make sure that he's doing his job. And then they're going to spend the whole summer out there gestating. It's about 4 months. All the sows usually farrow around the same time. We only have one boar, so there, of course, is a little bit of delay. He doesn't necessarily all get them bred at exactly the same time. Then when they're ready to farrow, we'll bring them back into the barn to farrow. And I do this because we have wet ground, we have unpredictable ground, and I like to have a little bit more control over the piglet management. So we have decided to farrow in the barn. Each sow has her own 10 by 10 box stall, which is deep bedded. There's a creep with a brooder box with a heat lamp in it that the piglets can go into, and that maintains a lot of heat. The brooder box also gives a place for the piglets to get out of the way. It's a really good combination of keeping the pigs warm and keeping them away from their mums. After about a week of them being in their stall with their piglets, the piglets are nursing well, they're active and strong, then we open the doors to the stalls and let the sows and piglets out into the common area, and they all are raised together. So that can mean that there are 6 or 7 sows with all their piglets loose in the sow barn, which is quite a riot, but it works out really well for feeding. The sows don't have to be fed individually. They don't have to be watered individually. They can all eat together. The piglets can play together. It's easier management-wise. Within a couple of weeks, the piglets are starting to eat feed, and they're just eating sow feed as well. They're picking up after their mothers. They're watching their mothers eat. As they get a little older, probably more like 5 weeks, we're getting a little closer to weaning. They're getting bigger. We start creep feeding them. So we give them a location that only they can get into and the sows cannot. And we begin feeding them separately, giving them a moistened a pig ration. Then it's more of a piglet ration, which is higher in protein, and they get that as much as they want. And then they'll start eating more and more feed and nursing less. And then by the time that they're 8 weeks old, they're on feed pretty well. They're still nursing, they're still on their moms, and the moms are all still there, but they're getting way more comfortable with eating the forage that I bring them and eating the feed and potentially going outdoors. And then at 8 weeks, when it's time to wean, they're strong on their feet. They're ready to go.